Let's jump straight into it. I'm going to share my screen to quickly show you what we'll be doing tonight. Give me 2 seconds. Cool. So as I've just mentioned, we're going to be starting off tonight talking about carbohydrates. So what are they? Why some people may think they're bad for them, and if they're going to make us fat if we eat them, if less carbs will help us lose weight, and also something else you may have heard of or other people talking about are good versus bad carbs, okay? Then time allowing, we'll move into talk about isolation snacking, or snacking in the context of isolation, which we're all going through right now, okay? So we're talking for about 20 minutes or so, and then after that, we'll be jumping into a Q&A where I highly encourage you, all of you, if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them, okay? So we're going to start off talking. I'm going to put it to you. What are carbohydrates? Don't be shy. Yell out what you think carbohydrates are, or tell me in the chat what you think they are. Okay?
Sugar?
Sugar, yes, yep. Sugar's a type of carbohydrate, 100%.
Rice and pasta?
Yes. Yep. Rice and pasta are both sources of carbohydrates, 100% correct.
Bread.
Cool. Yes, bread's also another source. Spot on. These are all sources of carbs. It's good that we've got good knowledge here. Beautiful. What was that, sorry?
Energy.
Energy. Spot on. They provide us, that it's a good segue with our body's primary or preferred source of energy, okay? So all the carbohydrates we eat are digested in our system and broken down to something called glucose. That's absorbed in your small intestine, and they provide your body most of the things in your body with their primary preferred fuel source, okay? So they're definitely a good thing. We definitely want to be eating them so we can stay alive. We all want to do that. And secondly, so we can move about and go about our day-to-day tasks, including exercise with your GG trainer. You wouldn't be able to do that very well without carbohydrates, okay? So they're definitely a good thing. We don't want to be avoiding them, okay? And unfortunately, there's a lot of negativity around them nowadays, whether that be in the media, whether that be amongst your friends potentially, amongst your colleagues potentially, because there's a lot of people who like to demonize them and who like to sell fad diets which cut out carbohydrates, okay? They're not a bad thing at all, but a little bit further on, we'll talk about ones which are better and ones which we don't want to be having as much, okay? We'll move on now to, again, I'm going to put it to you. Firstly, what have you heard from people? And secondly, why do we potentially think that they're not good for us? Anyone's welcome to say what they've heard, what they think.
I've heard that obviously if you're eating carbs, it's the first thing you're going to burn off rather than the fat. So then if you're not eating carbs, it'll burn off the fat first.
Mm-hmm.
So avoiding the carbs, that way people probably think that they're losing weight quicker.
Okay, yep, cool. I'll make note of that. I'll talk about that in a sec. Anybody else? Anybody else heard anything about carbs being bad for them, or have a belief that carbs might be bad for them? No? Cool. I'll make a comment on that. So even though there is some merit in that, because like I was saying, carbohydrate being put into your body for energy, what matters the most there is your total energy intake from all of the food that you're eating, okay? So from the carbohydrates, from the fats, from the proteins, from everything that you're eating, all the energy, total energy going into your body, that's compared to the energy that you're expending through your day-to-day activities, through exercise, through your basal metabolic rate, what your body needs to keep alive. The balance between that will determine whether we're burning the fat stored in our body, preferentially, or whether we're burning the food going in, if that makes sense. So even though if we eat carbs, we will burn them for energy, if we're still consuming totally less energy than what we're putting out, we are still going to burn body fat. So long story short, eating carbs won't necessarily prevent you from burning any body fat at all. It's just if we're eating at the level that we require to maintain our weight or more than that, that we're not going to be burning body fat. Okay? So it's carbs aren't going to keep fat on your body necessarily. Okay? If that helps answer that question regarding that. Okay? Cool. Another theory you may have heard of, I won't go into too much detail, feel free to tell me to shut up if I get too rambly, is that a lot of people talk about insulin. There's a theory about insulin. Does anyone know what insulin is? It's okay if we don't. When we eat carbs, an organ called the pancreas spits something out that helps pull our blood sugar levels down and pull blood sugar into our tissues, all right? Insulin is something which helps us build new tissues or build new substances in our body. And some people say if we eat carbs and insulin will go up, it will store fat and make us fat. That's, again, not necessarily true. What matters the most about storing body fat is our total energy intake versus our total energy output, okay? Insulin secreted in response to us eating carbs won't necessarily make us fat, okay? We'll move on now. Same sort of topic, if carbs will make us fat. That, again, isn't true. Why isn't it true? I'm going to use the example, which some of you may be familiar of, the ketogenic diet or the keto diet or low carb diets. Initially, people cut out carbs from their diet, okay, on a ketogenic diet. For those of you who aren't familiar, a ketogenic diet is a diet which removes almost all carbohydrates and you consume often less than 30 to 50 grams a day. So 30 grams a day can be a large banana, to put it into perspective for you. So it's very, very low. Initially, when people go on a diet like this, you lose weight pretty quickly within the first week. And people think, great, it's working. When we eat carbohydrates, our body stores them in our muscles and in our liver as something called glycogen. When this is stored, water comes on and binds to it, okay? Water is mass. It weighs something. So when we remove carbohydrates from our diets and our carbohydrate stores go down, the water stores are going to be going down as well. So that shows up on the scales as pretty quick weight loss. So people think, great, I'm losing heaps of weight. But then as they go on, depending again on the total energy balance we spoke about before, it may not work again because carbohydrates aren't causing you to be fat, okay? Another problem with a diet like that is extremely exclusive. It cuts carbohydrates out, and carbohydrates are in a lot of the foods that we eat, a lot of the foods that we enjoy. And we have to remember that if we want to start eating in a certain way, we need to be able to see ourselves doing that forever. If we can't see ourselves removing almost all carbohydrates out from your diet forever, this is an example of one diet, then is it going to work forever? It may work in the short term, but it's not going to work sustainably into the future, okay? So long story short, low carb diets, keto diets, amongst other diets out there, are discouraged, especially get going, because we want to get you sustainable results that you can take into your future and empower you with habits and behaviors that you're going to take forwards and be able to implement forever, rather than a diet like a ketogenic diet, a low carb diet, which is highly, highly unlikely to be adhered to and continued in the long term. Okay. So if you're going to take anything away from that, carbs do not make you fat. Low carb diets, for example, the ketogenic diet, are often unsustainable. Okay. I'll stop talking for a second and ask anybody if you know anybody who has been on one of these diets, or if you've tried the diets yourself, or if you're interested in trying one. Just to give you guys a break from hearing me rambling.
My friend went on the keto diet.
Yep.
But it really went downhill in like the opposite way, and now she struggles with her eating. So
yeah,
it's like I look at it as a really negative thing.
Yep. Unfortunately, that's the case because it's so exclusive, and it cuts so many things out. I think I was saying before, things that we're used to eating, things that we enjoy eating, things that we eat in social situations around our friends. When we cut all these things out, it can play with our mental and our social health, which we need to keep in mind as well, rather than just our physical health. So sorry to hear that happen to your friends. Hopefully in time, she'll seek the help to help her get on path. Okay. Anyone else who's tried the diet, who knows anybody that's been on the diet or that recommends it?
I've had, from my experience as a PT, I've had quite a few clients who've heard, all the good things about losing weight on the keto diet. But I've just found from my experience, just no one really sticks with it. Like what you were saying, it's like the first couple of weeks, it's like a fun new diet that's, cutting out carbs, whatever, and they see some quick results. But I can't say from experience I've ever had anyone that really does persevere with it for much longer than a couple of weeks. So interesting.
Unfortunately,
Alex,
that's the case. Sorry, what were you going to say?
No, sorry, Alex. I was just wondering when you were explaining about, the water actually binds to the carbohydrates to form glycogen. The water also binds to proteins as well, right? Or does it actually bind as much to, in comparison, with carbohydrates? Does that make sense? Like the question?
I'll answer it based on what I think you've asked, but pull me up if I don't. Yes, there is definitely water bound to proteins as well, and water in our muscles. A lot of our muscle tissue is made up of water, 100%. But when I was talking about glycogen, for anyone that is reminding, is carbohydrates stored in our muscles. I'm talking about that in the context of the keto diet, because people think that when they go on the keto diet initially that, oh, great, it's helping me burn body fat. But the quick initial weight loss they see is the glycogen decrease, therefore the water decrease that's bound to it, if you know what I mean. So there's still water in our muscle tissues, 100%, but the water that's been bound to the carbohydrate decreases, if that makes sense. So I was just talking about it in the context of weight loss, but there's still definitely water in our muscles, yes. Does that answer the question?
So yes, it does. So when we actually eat more protein, does it actually work the same way as well, as when we are eating carbohydrates? But I guess what I'm trying to say is that, when you compare, when you're eating more protein and you're eating more carbohydrate, does the water actually binds a lot more to carbohydrate than it is to proteins? And so that's why when you are on a keto diet, majority of your diet would mostly be protein. Is that correct?
A majority of your diet's fat on a keto diet.
On a keto diet, right?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
I won't go into detail why, but on a keto diet, most of your energy is coming from fat. You're still getting some protein, more protein than carbs, but most of it's coming from fat. Yeah. I'll quickly answer what I think you're asking.
Yeah.
Proteins aren't stored in our bodies like carbohydrates. When you eat protein, we break them down to other things, which are either used and incorporated or flushed out. Carbohydrates, we can store them. We can store a lot of what we eat in our muscles or our liver. Therefore, water goes and binds to them in our bodies. Whereas proteins, even though water can bind to it, they're not stored in our body like carbohydrates are. They're broken down and used differently. So the water binding to protein causing potential weight retention doesn't occur in the same way as it does with carbohydrates.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, that's right. Cool. One last thing about carbohydrates, and then I'll quickly go down on some information about snacking, okay? We may have heard about things good versus bad carbs, okay? Firstly, we want to try and not talk about food as good or bad, because there's no such thing as good or bad foods, okay? No food is inherently good for us. No food is inherently bad for us, okay? All food brings us more or less benefit and more or less potential risk, all right? So we don't want to think about or label food as good or bad. When it comes to carbohydrates, better carbohydrates are the ones that you get from whole grains. Okay, thinking oats, thinking brown rice, thinking quinoa, whole grains, that we get from fruits, that we get from vegetables, including potatoes and sweet potatoes, pumpkin, things like that, okay? Those are better carbohydrates that we want to be eating more of because they provide us with longer lasting energy that will allow us to sustain our energy levels throughout the day for longer. So they're better. They're not good. They are good, but they're not good. They shouldn't have a halo over them, if that makes sense, okay? They're just better and provide us with more benefits and more nutrients versus carbohydrates coming from things like lollies, coming from soft drinks, cakes, processed takeaway foods, things like that. They're not bad carbs, but those carbs aren't as beneficial to us, don't provide us with as many nutritional benefits, and they shoot our energy levels up, which then goes down a lot more quickly versus the other carbohydrates. Okay, so they may leave us hungrier sooner, craving these things sooner, and we may experience an energy spike. So an energy spike in fall, or a sugar crash, as some of you may have heard before. Okay, so if you're going to take anything away from that, no carbs are good or bad, but we want to be prioritizing carbs from fruit, vegetables, and whole grains. Okay, and fruit, vegetables, whole grains, because they're going to provide us with the longer lasting energy. Okay, let's move on now to snacking. Okay, how many of you are snackers? Enjoy snacking? They may enjoy snacking, they may struggle with snacking. Yell out if you have.
I absolutely love snacks. Huge fan.
Pardon?
Huge fan of snacks. Absolutely
Huge
love
fan
them.
of snacks. Yep, me too.
Yeah.
Right. Anyone else?
Oh, I'm not too bad. I love my savouries, and my meal portions are probably going to be the bigger issue than snacking.
Okay. Cool. Interesting. Beautiful. Anyone else? No, that's right. Cool. Again, I shouldn't generalize, but I generally hear quite a bit of negativity around snacking, okay? And sometimes it can be potentially adverse to our goals, but again, it all depends on everything, okay? Snacking can be broken down into two broad categories. There may be planned nutritious snacks that we have between our meals to get nutrients in, or that could be boredom, emotional snacking. When we're not actually hungry, we don't actually physically need food. We're not actually hungry, but we just mentally want food, okay? That could be for numerous reasons. I shouldn't go into all of them, but two general ones we speak about, or that I usually talk about with my own clients, or anyone that speaks to me about snacking problems. The first one, are we getting enough protein and fiber in our meals? Okay. Hopefully all of you will receive the Get Going Nutrition Guide, which talks about portion sizes and things to include in your meals. All of them talk about including about a palm size serving. Everyone hold out your palms. Palm size serving of protein, whether that be from red meat, fish, chicken, eggs, tofu, beans and lentils. We want to include a source of protein in all of our meals and even in our snacks as well.
You mean I can't include my fingers?
Sorry, pardon?
I can't include my fingers, just the palm of my hand?
Look, again, that depends, but we usually want to aim for our palm, yeah?
Oh dear, okay.
My hands. But
I think the steak I ate last night was larger than my hand, so I'll have to cut it in half next time.
Yep, that's probably a good idea. Save the rest for lunch tomorrow. Not a bad thing, but place to work on. Yeah, maybe put that into two. Yeah.
Sorry, were we emailed these nutritional guides or?
You most likely will have received them at the start, but they're fairly new. So if you haven't got them, just ask your trainer for it and they'll be happy to pass it on to you. Okay?
Cool, thank you.
No worries. All good. So we should be including a source of protein in our meals. Again, numerous reasons, but one of the big ones is protein helps keep us full for a lot longer than what other things do. Okay. Again, protein is used for other things, but one of the main ones you want to include in your meals because it helps to keep you fuller for longer. Okay, so we're eating a bowl of rice with some spinach chucked in. That's not a bad meal, but it's lacking a protein source, which could help you keep fuller for longer. Okay, cool. Another thing we want to be including in our meals and our snacks is a fiber source. And again, in the meals we talked to you about, we want to be including vegetables in. And again, vegetables aren't the only fiber source, but we want to be including a source, preferably about 2 pounds worth of vegetables in all of our meals. Why? Because fiber, amongst other health benefits, also helps to keep us fuller for longer. Okay? So if we're lacking those things in meals and snacks, it's no surprise that you get hungry quickly because we're not taking the opportunity to give ourselves the things which helps keep us satiated or full for longer. Okay? The second thing may be emotional. Okay? We may be reaching for things because we're bored. We may be reaching for foods because we're stressed. We may be angry. We may be upset about something. So the next time you go for a snack, and unless you're physically hungry in your stomach, if you're physically hungry in your stomach and you've ticked off those boxes in your meals, you're probably hungry. So you probably could benefit from some food. But if you've nailed your meals on the head, if your stomach isn't actually hungry, but your brain's wanting food, try and go through a little process with yourself. Sit down a minute or two, ask yourself, am I anxious or stressed about anything right now? Am I bored right now? Am I angry right now? Ask yourself these questions about various emotions you may be having. And if the answer is yes to any of them, so let's say right now I'm bored. God, I'm bored. I'm going to go reach for that bag of crackers. What can I do instead of eating that's going to occupy me for a lot longer than that bag of crackers will? You know what I mean? That bag of crackers will last minutes. Or I could get up and go for a 45, 60-minute walk. I could go and read my favorite book. I could go and participate in a hobby. I could go and start working on an errand around the house that I've been putting off for weeks. You know what I mean? Food provides us with a quick little, it's called dopamine release, feel good feeling, which again isn't a bad thing, but it's not going to occupy those feelings that you have for very long. Okay? So I encourage all of you to go through that little process whenever you're eating when you're not hungry and to try and find a resolution, or at the very least distraction, to occupy yourself in a way that's not food. Okay? When you're reaching for food when you're not hungry. Okay? That should help with, should hopefully start, or be at least a starting point for helping you when you're not actually hungry and you're reaching for snacks. Okay? So I've got here how to build a healthy snack. In the interest of time, I won't go on for too much longer, but I'll give you a few suggestions. Think of some protein sources that you can include in a snack. I was speaking before. Think about to yourself, or you can write these down if you like these or not. A YoPro or a Chobani Fit Greek yogurt, awesome source of protein. Some boiled eggs, a can of tuna, some beans or lentils if you follow a plant-based diet, or if you just like beans and lentils, or even a whey protein shake if you're on the go and eating something really quick and fast and convenient. Okay. Protein sources we can have, and pair them up with a fiber source, whether that be some chopped up vegetables, whether that be a piece of fruit, whether that be some whole grain crackers. Try and think of some of these options and some of the fiber options and see how you can combine them, okay, in a snack. And compared to your bag of crackers or your bag of chips, I don't want to say guarantee, but I would bet on it that you'll feel full off for a lot longer and you'll be giving your body a lot more nutrition, okay? Cool. I'm going to end my talking there. Sorry if you're sick of hearing my voice, and I'll open it up now to a Q&A. So any single questions you have about what I've just spoken about, go for it. I'm more than happy to answer them. Okay? Don't be shy. Anything. Literally anything what I've just spoken about. And it's been a lot as well. So I apologize if any of you feel overloaded because I've crammed quite a bit in.
Hey, Alex. I was just wondering, you're talking about carbohydrates before, and that fruit is a good one to go for.
Yep.
Are you going to get like a sugar spike if you eat too much?
What would you count as too much fruit?
Or like a couple of handfuls of berries or something?
You won't get a sugar rush from
No?
that. No,
Okay.
you won't. It's recommended by the Australian Dietary Guidelines to have 2 pieces of fruit a day. 2 pieces of fruit, this is an example, could look like about a medium-sized apple you can grip in your hands.
Yeah.
And like you said, probably a couple of handful of berries.
Yeah, and that's okay.
2 servings of fruit, 100%, yes. Fruit's awesome in the fact that it contains fiber. Most, if not every fruit is a good source of fiber. Some are a bit lower, but most fruits are a good source of fiber. Fiber slows down the absorption of the sugar in fruit.
Yeah.
So unlike a lolly, which you eat, it's broken down really quickly and your energy levels go up. Fruit contains fiber. Most fruit contains fiber, which will slow down how quickly that sugar is absorbed in your gut. So long story short, no. Have 2 pieces of fruit a day. It's awesome. It's great for you. Okay. Cool. Anyone else? Literally anything. I'm more than happy to help you out. No.
Alex,
Yes.
I've got one question. You were talking about a diet. Another diet I've tried is the Michael Mosley one where you're fasting.
Okay. Yep.
I did find that effective, but I'm thinking maybe it was probably the initial couple of weeks. It certainly wasn't sustainable.
Yep.
But you can certainly get some results very quickly, but it is hard to sustain as such. But yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I think, obviously you're going to drop a lot of weight because I guess fluid and everything, because you're just simply not eating or loading and you're losing all that fluid and you're getting that instant result. So it's disappointing in a way because I really like Michael Mosley and what he says. But I think that's what I've concluded anyway in my experience. I'm not sure if you've known or had any clients successfully sustain such a diet.
I'm not familiar with Michael himself, but it's what you said about your experience with the diet is fairly common. And it's awesome that you have results initially, and that's great, and they're to be enjoyed, and you definitely acknowledge yourself for them. But if we want to make progress in the long term, then these extreme isn't always the right word, but these highly specific diets which cut out certain things often, like you said, isn't overly sustainable. We want to help you build, and it might take longer. These, like you said, these diets may be quick results for whatever reason it may be, but we'd rather take a little bit longer, help you slowly build habits over time, because habits take a while to build, that you can sustain 5, 10, 15, 20, if not more years down the track, and help you keep your results for longer and help you feel healthier for longer. Okay. Including carbohydrates is a big part of that. Cool.
Okay.
Anybody else?
Good.
Alex, got a couple of questions.
Yep.
Can you talk through different types of rice, black rice, basmati rice, white rice and brown rice, just the differences where nutritionally they stack up and what's going to be the best choice to make as far as rice goes?
Of course, 100%. Awesome question. Fantastic question. So let's start off with the difference between white and a whole grain rice, right? So there's a rice plant that grows, they harvest the rice out of them. The grain of rice has something around the outside called the bran. When they refine the rice down to white rice, they're taking that away, all right? That layer on the rice contains most of the fiber and most of the micronutrients, okay? So what's left behind with white rice is mainly the carbohydrate, Okay, and a little bit of protein in there as well, not much. Okay, so the difference between, let's say, jasmine white rice and let's say regular long grain white rice and basmati rice, which is also white. Tell me to slow down if I'm going too fast. Is the type of carbohydrate in them. Okay, so the type of carbohydrate in, let's use jasmine rice as an example, is broken down and absorbed by the body more quickly. So it has a higher GI or higher glycemic index because it is absorbed, carbs are absorbed more quickly, and our blood sugar goes down a little bit more quickly as well, right? Versus basmati rice, which is also white, if you're not a big fan of the whole grain varieties. However, the type of carbohydrate in basmati rice takes a little bit longer to break down and to be absorbed. Okay, it's not by much, not much difference, but it takes a little bit longer. Okay, so basmati has a lower glycemic index than regular white rice or jasmine rice. Okay, those are the main white rices. Let's move across to brown rice now. Brown rice hasn't been stripped as much of its outside layer. Okay, so it's a little bit higher in fiber. It's a little bit higher in micronutrients, vitamins and minerals, for example, in vitamin E. Not by much, it's just a little bit in the bran. So again, because it has the fiber on the outside, it's a little bit lower in GI. It's going to take a little bit longer for it to be absorbed, the carbs to be absorbed. So it'll give you slightly more sustained energy levels. Okay. And that's same for a black rice. Black rice is a different variety of rice, but it again hasn't been stripped and refined as much. Okay. Long story short, for general health recommendations, we recommend a brown or a black rice, simply because it's a little bit higher in fiber and it's going to provide you with slightly longer lasting energy. Okay. However, if you absolutely can't stand brown rice, black rice, white rice in the portion size recommended, so about a palm cooked of white rice, not big mounds of it, with a lean protein source and a whole lot of veg is perfectly fine. It won't make you fat. It's not going to cause all these ailments and diseases. The other things in your meal, such as the protein and the vegetables, will actually slow down the absorption of the carbohydrates in the rice itself. Okay, so it's not, the carbs aren't by themselves. There's a whole lot of stuff in your stomach contributing to how fast stuff is absorbed. Okay, long story short, because I've rambled on, go for brown or black, preferably. If you really don't like it, white is perfectly fine if you have it in the palm size cooked recommendations we speak about. Okay, it's a very long answer, but have I answered it?
You have, and it was perfect. Thank you so much for articulating.
All good. Beautiful. Lovely. In the interest of time, we've gone a little bit over. I will end it there. I've put my Instagram down the bottom here, A-Rod's Nutritional. Give it a follow if you're interested in anything nutrition and exercise related. And any of you are more than welcome to message me at any time to ask any questions you may have. Okay. But your Get Going trainer will be more than equipped to help you out. But you're also more than welcome to message me if you'd like. I'll be happy to help you. Okay. Thank you very much, everybody, for coming tonight. I hope I've helped you. Hope you've enjoyed it somewhat. And feel free to pass on as much feedback, whether that be good, bad, neutral. I want to make sure that these are as beneficial and enjoyable as possible. Okay, so any feedback is welcome. All right. Everyone have a beautiful night and day tomorrow. Stay healthy and hopefully see you again next week. Okay.
Thank you, Alex.
Right. Thanks, Alex.
Sleep
Cheers.
well.
Yep.